It's Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Good evening and welcome to the daily happenings inside our federal machine. This is Spathon and it's time to plunge into the swamp to see what happened today. The White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt dropped an atomic bomb on the White House Press Corp today, reminding everyone that Trump has been pursuing global peace all year and the press has constantly tried to sabotage the movement toward peace between Ukraine and Russia. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, through the direction of the president, has revoked the security clearance of 37 current and former Obama-era intelligence employees, many involved with Russiagate, because they put their own interests above the interests of the American people. The U.S. Coast Guard seized 3,500 kilograms of cocaine over the weekend in an operation called Pacific Viper. The Federal Department of Education put a stop to the federal funding of political activism in universities. Thank God. The CDC eliminated corporate influence in the decisions over vaccine recommendations, returning the CDC to gold standard evidence-based science, and the American Academy of Pediatrics isn't happy about it. The Democrats are freaking out over Trump's pursuit to eliminate mail-in ballots by midterm elections, and we'll read some of their responses. And also, a high-ranking official finally brings up the high cost of housing and how problematic it is for everyday Americans. And he said that lowering interest rates would largely solve the problem, so we'll check that out. And also, again, DNI Tulsi Gabbard is also in the news for her announcement that the UK has agreed to drop its mandate for Apple to provide a backdoor that would have enabled access to the private encrypted data of American citizens. And there's a lot more to dig through, so we're just going to dive right in. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I might just read your comment on the next episode if you decide to drop one. All right. So, yeah. But first, I'm just going to kind of make just a real brief announcement. So, it's been quite a journey getting my microphone to function properly. I have had electromagnetic interference from somewhere. I've already thrown the kitchen sink at it with all the cables, the rewiring, getting rid of a Wi-Fi router in my room and unplugging every LED light that I have, getting rid of all my dimmers, putting my phone in the next room, everything I could possibly think of. Nothing would work. Nothing fixed it. So anyway, I bought it's a Maono, M-A-O-N-O. I don't know how to pronounce this stuff. It's a PD200X. XLR dynamic microphone. It's on Amazon. It's cheap, like including the attachment arm. It's like 60, 70 bucks or something like that. So it's a good microphone, has great reviews, but for some reason it was just picking up lots of background noise, which I know it's environmental. It has to do with something with, I don't know, my immediate vicinity somewhere, somehow. So anyway, I spent a little bit more money and I got a PUBG Sys T12 sound mixer, or whatever they call it, a podcast mixer or whatever it is. It's just like this little basic setup so I can work like the volumes and a couple of the headsets and whatnot. This thing was awesome. I'm really glad that I got it because I didn't plan on getting anything like that. I just wanted to plug in a microphone and just talk. And apparently it's a lot more complicated than just that, at least where I'm at. So I got the mixer. I was thinking that an XLR connection would be better than plugging my microphone directly into the computer through the USB. But if anything, the static, it was more sensitive by doing that than it was by just plugging it directly into the computer. So the mixer was making it worse somehow. So I just kept trying to get to the root of the problem. So I spent days watching YouTube tutorials, learning the filters in OBS, working with the gain, the noise suppression, the compressor, the expander, the limiter, and all of that got me absolutely nowhere. Sometimes it sounded better. Most of the time it sounded even worse. I don't know. The background humming, the static, the interference, it just kept persisting. So I got my hands on a Pyle, P-Y-L-E. It's a PHE400 XLR noise eliminator box, which did the trick. It fixed the background noise. However, every time I spoke into the microphone, all of that humming and background noise bled right through my voice every time I spoke. So it basically did nothing at all. So this Sunday, I ended up doing an episode, which I ended up taking down because it was a crazy echo that was happening. And the reason for the echo, for some stupid ass reason, something called noise suppression, it's a filter in OBS, I had that enabled. And for whatever reason, I got rid of it trying to get to the root of why the echoing was happening, because I thought there was a second microphone that was enabled on my headset. That wasn't it. So I went into OBS and I started just straight up deleting different filters, and I got to that one, deleted it, the echo completely went away. So I don't know, you got me. So I know not to do that again. Yeah, so that ruined my Sunday night episode completely. So I ended up just taking it down. But so anyway, today I got my hands on a Cloud Lifter CL1, which I think is doing the right trick. I think it's got the magic touch. It costs more than my entire setup combined. This thing was like $150. Way more than I would have ever expected to spend on anything. It really sucks. I mean, that's a lot of money for me. But I'm not hearing anything in the background. And I uploaded a sample video to YouTube, and it sounds great. I've got my fingers crossed. I'm praying to God that I can finally relax and get on with the show already, because this has been like 2 weeks in the making. Every day I'm spending like 2 to 3 hours trying to get this microphone to sound right. All I want to do is have a microphone sound clear and okay. I'm not even looking for studio quality. I'm just looking to get rid of the clicks and the background noise and the humming and the echoing and all the bullshit. I'm just looking for just a regular ass, normal ass setup. And it's insane. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm not playing background music in the moment because it's kind of a test for myself also. So when I listen to this later tonight, I can kind of listen to my voice and find out, do I sound good? Is it clicking? Is there like static popping happening? Like, what's going on? Because I know there's got to be something going on. So far in this big journey, there's been something. So I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it sounds great. But anyway, I'm going to cue the background music now. We'll bring that in and try to chill out with a little bit of background jazz, which, by the way, I am going to change this pretty soon. It's supposed to be like 6 or 7 hours worth of nonstop jazz music, and it loops every 6 hours, but it turns out it's like the same 4 tracks over and over again. So whoever uploaded this, it's in my YouTube description. You can go straight to the video where I got this from. Yeah, it's basically playing like the same 4 tracks over and over for 6 hours, which is annoying to me. I was hoping to get a much better variety than that, so look forward to that in the coming days. Everything has been put on hold until this microphone situation gets fixed, because I think it's absolutely killing the quality of my channel. I'm trying to get this thing off the ground. I think it's phenomenal. I've got 11 subscribers, man. This is amazing. It's so cool. I cannot believe I already got 11 subscribers in like just a week. I mean, some people might think that really sucks, but not me. No way, man. This is absolutely amazing. I'm just having a good time. Keeping track of the news. Got something to do. You know, my daughter, she just graduated high school back in May, so I've got extra free time now. I mean, she still comes over and everything, and you know, she lives with me half the time, but she started college, so she's going to college locally, but she's kind of off doing her own thing for now. So it's making me nervous, and I'm kind of going stir crazy whenever I'm thinking about it. So that's kind of the reason why I decided to pick up something, try to revitalize my YouTube experience and see what I can try to deliver for YouTube and see if anything might end up working out. And if not, whatever. I'm having fun. It's a hobby. I'm enjoying myself. But anyway, all right, so we'll go ahead and get into this. Let's go straight over here to my bookmarks. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. This happened, let's see, about 8 hours ago was when he posted this, and he was on the news earlier today on, what is this, CNBC? I want to say it's CNBC. It is. It's CNBC. But anyway, he says that before the war in Ukraine, less than 1% of India's oil came from Russia, but now it's at 42%. So the system is allowing India to profiteer by buying cheap Russian oil, reselling it, and then pocketing $16 billion in excess profits. This opportunistic arbitrage is unacceptable. I've made mentions of this before. I didn't even realize up until either yesterday or the day before when I read something somewhere during the show that India is like they're actually selling a lot of Russian oil, like a lot, $16 billion worth. And I had no idea, frankly, that India had been purchasing less than 1% of their oil supply from Russia before the Ukraine war situation. I had no idea. So now, yeah, I'm completely siding against India on this one, because I was just under the impression that they need it because India is the largest country by population on Earth. They're still a developing nation, so I'm sure they're probably adding millions of motor vehicles to the country's vehicle supply per year. So I'm sure their demand of oil is just exponentially increasing year after year. That's what I assumed, but no, it just sounds like they struck a good deal with Russia. and they got such a good deal with Russia, they're actually just reselling their oil and they're making a profit, and Russia's using that money to fuel their war machine. So, yeah, I can't exactly say I agree with that. So what the fuck, India? Anyway, here, let's hear what the Treasury Secretary has to say about it.
Let's go back and look at the history, though, Becky. And look, China importing it.
Oh,
is
I'm sorry.
suboptimal.
Hold on. No sound. My bad. See, I'm still a little rusty. All right, we're good. We're good. Let me go back. Let's start this over again, shall we?
Let's go back and look at the history, though, Becky. And look, China importing it is suboptimal.
Let's go back,
But
Becky.
If you go back and
Back to the
look,
history.
Pre-22, pre-invasion, 13% of China's oil was already coming from Russia. Now it's 16. So China has a diversified input of their oil. If you go back and look now, I believe India had less than 1% of their oil, 1%, and now I believe it's up to 42.
That is crazy.
Wow. India
That's
is
a lot.
just profiteering,
kind of a lot.
Or they are just profiteering. They are reselling. They've made $16 billion in excess profits. Some of the richest families in India. So this is a completely different thing. Like this Indian, what I would call the Indian arbitrage, buying cheap Russian oil, reselling it as product, has just sprung up during the war, which is unacceptable.
Yeah, that ain't good, India. That ain't good. These Indian families, these rich Indian oligarchs. Wasn't aware that India had oligarchs, but apparently they must. $16 billion, dude. That's a lot of money. All right, so let's move on to the next one here from Secretary Linda McMahon. We are making education great again. How are we making education great again? Let's see.
What we're hearing from parents, not only from Oklahoma, but from across the country, is to make sure that we are focusing on education. When Donald Trump took office and the Nation Report Card scores came out, and we saw, what was happening, not only the comparison of where we were on a global basis, but where our states were within our country. The president told me he not only was embarrassed, but he was angry by that, and he wanted to focus on making sure that education was the top priority. And the best way to do that was to get it back to the states, where he believes, as I do, the best education is the one closest to the child. And for parents and for teachers and school superintendents and governors to be the ones who are in charge of that education process. And so that is that's the path we're on.
Man, that's awesome, dude. I think we finally got a decent leader of the Department of Education, finally, Secretary Linda McMahon. I mean, that's great. She's finally given states power over their own education system. That's something. She's actually an advocate that I read the other day. I read that apparently she's an advocate for just dismantling the federal Department of Education altogether. And if that's actually true, if that's the case, then I'm one of her biggest cheerleaders, because, yeah, I think the Department of Education, it never should have started. The American education system was arguably among the best in the world leading up to its formation, and ever since then, it's been an absolute disaster. It's been an absolute black hole for our monetary system, our fucking taxes. All right, so let's move on to Secretary Kristi Noem. 80% of illicit drug seizures occur at sea. The U.S. Coast Guard is surging maritime interdictions in the Eastern Pacific to stop the cartels and criminal organizations. They're cutting off drugs and human smuggling before it reaches American shores as part of Operation Pacific Viper. That sounds badass. Operation Pacific Viper. This weekend alone, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard Cutter. Is that what that stands for, the C? I don't know. I'm not familiar with Coast Guard lingo. My apologies. Anyway, Stone interdicted 2 vessels, seizing 3,497 kilograms of cocaine and detaining 6 Ecuadorian smugglers. Make America safe again. Hell yeah. Dude, they even got boats on fire and everything. Those look like dummies. Don't those look like dummies? Those don't look like real people. But yeah, they set it on fire. They burned it. I'm assuming maybe the cocaine was on board of that vessel. Or at least that's what they want you to believe. Maybe the government is seizing it and selling it back to the Colombians. I'm just joking. Or am I? Uh-oh. What did I do? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. All right. This is a disaster. Absolute disaster. Okay, we're good. All right, we're good. Yeah, that's what it looks like they did. Looks like they just burned the boat, possibly that had the drugs on it. I'm not sure what their policy is. I assume that their policy would probably be at a minimum, probably weigh it, so then they know how much to charge them with. But, all right, so let's go on to Secretary Lori Chavez de Raymer. We're cracking down on China and other bad actors to keep foreign goods made with forced labor off our shelf. Hold on a second. Let me start that over again. That really irritates me that it always pops up whenever I mouse over that. Let's try this again, shall we? We're cracking down on China and other bad actors to keep foreign goods made with forced labor off our shelves and ensure American businesses aren't put at a disadvantage. Thank you to Secretary Noem for helping us put American workers first. And she is responding to Secretary Kristi Noem, of course. So I'll make this bigger. America has a moral, economic, and national security duty to eradicate threats that endanger our nation's prosperity, including unfair trade practices that disadvantage the American people and stifle our economic growth. The Trump administration is taking action. The use of slave labor is repulsive, and we will hold Chinese companies accountable for abuses and eliminate threats its forced labor practices pose to our prosperity. And she is responding to Homeland Security. Today, Secretary Noem announces the designation of new Chinese industry sectors as high priority for enforcement under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. America adds steel, copper, lithium, caustic soda, and red dates as high priority sectors for enforcement under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which restricts Chinese goods made with forced labor from entering the United States. The DHS expands forced labor import, bans steel, lithium, and blocks billions in Chinese goods. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's a bad thing? I think forced labor is bad. I think it's really bad. You know, Democrats, they used to think that was bad too. Pretty sure that Democrats were among the Uyghur Muslims' biggest cheerleaders at one time. I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. I somehow doubt that. It just depends on which way they want to drive the narrative. And I mean, they're just NPC rabble these days. If someone says, no, we're not for it, then everybody in lockstep just instantly says, no, we're not for it. Fuck the Uyghurs. We don't give a shit. So, I don't know. Hopefully that's something that both sides would actually agree to, because, yeah, the Uyghur Muslims in, where is it? Is it in Western China? Is that where the Uyghurs live? They live in, like, the Western China region. And apparently they've been oppressed by the Chinese Communist Party for years at this point. And that's probably putting it lightly, to be honest. I think it's been like a full-on, is genocide too heavy of a word to use to describe that situation? I'm not an expert on the whole Uyghur situation. I remember just picking up little tidbits here and there along the way. But yeah, here we go. According to Doge AI, finally DHS cracks down on China's forced labor imports. Steel, lithium, copper, high priority enforcement is overdue, but let's be clear, blocking tainted goods isn't enough. Reshoring these industries to America is the real win. Amen, buddy. Amen. Bring it all home. The manufacturing, all of it. And I'm sure we could probably still source those materials right here at home. I'm sure we've got the natural resources to do so. You know what we probably should do? You know, since Canada has been such a pain in the ass, they've been such a thorn in our side over the last couple of years, I think we should just take the Yukon Territory from them. Just take it. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to go to war against us? I don't think they have a military. At least not one that's nearly as effective as ours. Because I'm sure the Yukon Territory has a lot. I know once upon a time the United States tried to buy the Yukon Territory from Canada, and they flat out said no. Because the Yukon Territory has insane amounts of natural resources. Apparently it's really rich in gold. It's got like these giant gold reserves up there, apparently. Like just untapped land that has just oodles and oodles of natural resources. I don't know. Maybe I'll revisit that later. But I just thought that would be an interesting twist. I mean, Trump, he's talking about taking Greenland. Sounds like Greenland's may not going to end up being in the cards. So we got the Yukon Territory up there. Maybe we should open up that book again. See where that might lead us. So anyway, Trump's tariffs laid the groundwork, and now we're seeing accountability. Every dollar spent on Chinese lithium or steel funds oppression and weakens U.S. supply chains. The UFLPA's bipartisan tools prove even D.C. can't ignore this crisis. The next step is to slash bureaucratic delays, fast-track domestic mining, and put American industry back on top. No more outsourcing critical sectors to regimes that exploit workers. Absolutely. All good news, man. All good news. Good news, good news. This administration, in the first, how many months are we in right now? 7 months into this administration. It's got to be the busiest administration that we've ever had. It is absolutely crazy how many of these secretaries of our different departments are in the news, talking about doing this, doing that. The news is so fast moving this year. It's just constantly moving. There is absolutely no shortage of anything to talk about, that's for sure. Even on a Sunday, like the show that I had to drop on Sunday, that was like 2 hours and like 15 minutes long. For a Sunday, there's not much going on a Sunday. Not in the swamp. Not really, but there was this Sunday. But all right, anyway, let's go on next to, again, so there's going to be a few more from Karoline Leavitt. She had a busy day today. I don't usually like to just read a whole bunch of different posts from the same person. However, she just kept dropping banger after banger, so I just had to share them. I couldn't just ignore them. So for this one, Trump's education department puts a stop to federally funded political activism at universities. This is from the Daily Caller. It's hilarious that they use Kamala Harris as the image. So let's get a little bit into this here. The Department of Education announced on Tuesday that it is ending the taxpayer funding of political activism jobs on college campuses. Thank God. The department is rescinding the Biden-era guidance that allowed the federal work-study program, which provides college students with part-time jobs to help fund their education, to be used for jobs at political rallies, voter hotlines, poll workers, and other political activism jobs. What percentage of it is leaning toward the Democrat Party as opposed to how much of this money is leaning into the Republican Party? I would love to see the side-by-side. But we already know, 99.9% Democrat, 0.01% Republican, and if there's anything left over, it's probably somewhere in the independent side somewhere. Maybe like Freedom Caucus or the Green Party or I don't know if the Tea Party is still a thing. I don't know. Or what have you. So, where was I? Okay, yeah, so we're ready for this one here. So, quote, federal work study is meant to provide students opportunities to gain real-world experience that prepares them to succeed in the workforce, not as a way to fund political activism on our college and university campuses, Nicholas Kent, Under Secretary of Education, said in a statement. Dude, they're supposed to be there to get their learn on. They're supposed to go there with a career in mind that they're chasing after. That's their goal, is to land this dream career that they're going to college to try to get enough education to get into and hopefully achieve one day. So with that said, when you're in college, you're there to learn shit. You're not there to learn politics unless you're going in for political science. So most of the shit that they're funding, it's just a waste of time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be voters. I mean, yeah, I advocate for everybody to vote as long as you have the common sense to do so. Don't just vote because somebody tells you to. Actually learn about who the hell you're voting for. Because a lot of ignorant voters, really, that's a lot of the problems that led us into these situations that we're dealing with right now, especially with the Democrats completely falling off the communist cliff. Because a lot of low IQ people who don't actually do their own research, they just blindly listen to whoever it is that talks to them, and they just believe everything that's told to them, thinking with their feelings, not with their common sense and logic. But whatever. So anyway, quote, under President Trump and Secretary McMahon's leadership, the American taxpayer will no longer fund poll workers, voter hotlines, or political rallies on campus. We will also not require institutions to solicit students to register to vote if they know they are ineligible. The announcement from the department also clarified to higher education institutions that the Higher Education Act, HEA, which requires schools to make a good faith effort to distribute voter registration forms to students, does not require universities to distribute voter registration forms to students whom they know are ineligible to vote. The clarity is meant to prevent schools from aiding and abetting voter fraud. All right. The new guidance was issued in response to President Donald Trump's March executive order aimed at protecting the integrity of elections. Absolutely. The FWS program was not eligible for jobs involving any partisan or nonpartisan political activity before 2024. Updated guidance issued under the Biden administration in February of that year declared, quote, voter registration and election administration does not constitute political activity. Really? Registering people to vote is not considered political activity. Yeah, okay. Brain dead administration. Can you say it? All right, universities were often able to take advantage of the Biden administration's rule to fund roles such as Pennsylvania State University's Civic Engagement Ambassador, which is a position meant to, quote, support the registration and education of community voters. Really support the education of community voters? Which means just teaching them how to be good, obedient little Democrats. That's all it's doing. It's only teaching them how to, vote for our side, and the other side, they're a bunch of Nazis, they're extremely evil, and they're like totally fascist. I mean, I can't give you any reasons exactly why, but they just totally are. All right, whatever. So the job listing was available before the November election and hosted by the League of Women Voters, a pro-abortion organization committed to electing women and those who can become pregnant. Democrats also, oh, that means that they're anti-transgender then, right? Because transgenders, they can't get pregnant. All right, so Democrats often flock to college campuses to promote their campaigns as younger voting bases lean towards the party. Then Vice President Kamala Harris, during her 2024 presidential bid, focused a significant portion of her campaign on swing state college campuses, with the understanding that the student vote, especially in states like Michigan, could move states in her favor. Well, nah, turned out not so much. Not so much. I mean, I'm sure it probably helped her numbers, but it obviously didn't get her across the finish line. So yeah, that looks like that's all we got for that article. And I will link that in the description if you want to check this out for yourself. Sometimes, actually most of the time, I'll start an article, I'll get as far as I can, but eventually I have to move to the next thing because usually I pull like 30, 35, sometimes 40 posts in one episode. So there's only so much that I can read. Like last night's episode, for instance, I think I ended up going through 15 different articles. All of them are linked in the description. So that's mainly the reason. I just don't have enough time to read through all of it, but I still want to at least share it because all this stuff is important. This stuff happened. Like this, everything that I'm showing you is less than 24 hours old. So all of this stuff happened today, or at the very latest, it happened late last night. So anyway, let's move on to this one. This is in my opinion, this is the story of the day, at least as of like 6:30 p.m. That was kind of my cutoff for looking for things to talk about tonight. From the New York Post, Tulsi Gabbard strips 37 of security clearances over Obama-ordered intel report that launched Russiagate. And she also has her own post here. So let me just read this first. I wanted to put this up here because the New York Post, they're actually going to show an article that we can get a little more details into possibly who exactly these 37 people are. So DNI Tulsi Gabbard says the following, and actually I'll size it up a little bit more so we can read it a little better here. So, being entrusted with a security clearance is a privilege, not a right. Those in the intelligence community who betray their oath to the Constitution and put their own interests ahead of the interests of the American people have broken the sacred trust they promised to uphold. In doing so, they undermine our national security, the safety and security of the American people, and the foundational principles of our democratic republic. This is why, at the president's direction and at the office of the DNI, directed the revocation of the security clearances of 37 current and former intelligence professionals who have abused the public trust by politicizing and manipulating intelligence, leaking classified intelligence without authorization, and or committing intentional egregious violations of tradecraft standards. Yeah, like fabricating an entire conspiracy that never existed in the first place. Our intelligence community must be committed to upholding the values and principles enshrined in the U.S. Constitution and maintain a laser-like focus on our mission of ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. So this image, I can't make it any bigger. Maybe over on the New York Post, they might have this. So I'm not going to read this just yet. If there isn't anything over there on the Post, then I'll come back and I'll look into this to see. But there are the 37 names on this page. And I don't think any of them are familiar to me, to be honest. They're not any huge names that I know of. But like Andrew Cedar, Andrew P. Miller, Benjamin A. Cooper, Beth E. Sanner, Brett M. Holmgren, Charles A. Kupchan, Christopher Center, Corinne A. Graff, Dilpreet K. Sidhu, Edward Gestaro, Emily J. Horn, Harry Hanna, Heather R. Gutierrez, Jamie S. Jowers, Jeffrey P. Prescott, Joel T. Meyer, that kind of sounds familiar, Joel Willett, John W. Ficklin, Julia S. Gerganis, Julia Santucci, Lauren DeJong Schulman, Luke R. Hardig, Mayor B. Bitar, Mark B. Firestein, Mary Beth Goodman, Megan F. Doherty, Michael P. Dempsey, Perry J. Blattstein, Richard H. Leggett, Samantha E. Vinograd, Sarah S. Farnsworth, Shelby L. Pearson, Stephanie O'Sullivan, Thomas W. West, Vin X. Nagayan, William J. Tuttle, and Yale Eisenstate. So those are the names. All of their security clearance has been revoked. And according to her post, some of them actually still work for the agencies. Probably not all of them, but just the way it was worded, it sounded like that there... Oh, shit. It sounded like that there were some that were still working in the IC, the intelligence community. So let's check out this post here from the NY Post. So Tulsi Gabbard strips 37 security clearances over Obama-ordered intel report that launched Russiagate. Today's video headlines, not interested, but I appreciate it. So the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, announced security clearances had been pulled from 37 current and former officials who abused public trust by politicizing and manipulating information, including several who were involved in a controversial Barack Obama-ordered assessment of Russian influence in the 2016 election. An DNI memo announced that more than 36 intel professionals, including a former top aide to Obama DNI James Clapper, had either politicized or weaponized intelligence, failed to safeguard classified info, or not followed tradecraft standards. Quote, the president has directed that, effective immediately, the security clearances of the following 37 individuals are revoked, end quote, the August 18th memo stated, according to a copy obtained by the Post. Their access to classified systems, facilities, materials, and information is to be terminated forthwith. Any contracts or employment with the U.S. government by these 37 individuals is hereby terminated. Any credentials held by these individuals must be surrendered to the appropriate security officers. Let's see. The 37 include, the 37 include ex-principal deputy DNI Stephanie O'Sullivan and Vin Nguyen, who both worked under Clapper while his office was producing the now discredited 2017 intelligence community assessment on Russia's preference for then candidate Donald Trump in the 2016 contest with Hillary Clinton. So here's the letter. It's much larger here. Probably even make it even larger if I full screen it, or maybe not. Oh yeah, there you go. So that's legible. Memorandum for Distribution, Decision, Revocation of Security Clearances, Executive Order 13526, Classified National Security Information, December 29th of 2009. The U.S. government security clearance system exists to protect classified national security information and to ensure that those entrusted with access to our nation's most sensitive information uphold the highest standards of integrity, objectivity, and stewardship, of which none of those names I'm sure did at all. Them being involved in fabricating information, creating intelligence that didn't exist in the first place, I would say they kind of broke that trust. It is the determination of this office that certain individuals have engaged in some or all of the following conduct undermining those standards, to include politicization or weaponization of intelligence to advance personal, partisan, or non-objective agendas inconsistent with national security priorities, failure to safeguard classified information in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, and agency policies, failure to adhere to professional, analytic, tradecraft standards, and other conduct detrimental to the trust and confidence required for continued access to national security information. The president has directed that, effective immediately, the security clearances of the following 37 individuals are revoked. Their access to classified systems, facilities, materials, information is to be terminated. Let's see, we read that. Credentials held by these individuals must be surrendered. Each agency must review the list of individuals and take the appropriate actions to comply with the president's direction. Agencies are asked to provide my office with notification as soon as the revocation is complete. So they will be following up. And those are the names that I've already read. I guess I could scroll a little bit because, I'm terrible with names. And it's bad enough that I'm terrible with names. It's even worse that I had to read 37 of them in a row. But yeah, these are the names. If you've not seen them yet, there you go. Kind of pause, I guess, if you really want to, if you're that curious. Or like I've said before, like I said in yesterday's post, I'll go ahead and I'll repost this right now. So if you want to check out my profile, it's SPAETHON. And it's just like my YouTube channel, except there's an N at the end. That's my original name. But my original YouTube channel, it's not really political, so I created a new channel just to put this show on it. So anyway, and I'll repost this one as well. So is there anything else? Looks like that's it as far as, oh, yeah, that's basically it. Decision, revocation of security clearances. As far as the printout, it's a 3-pager, and it was distributed to Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Energy, Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA, the President, the White House Council, Geospatial Intelligence Agency, National Security, Defense Intelligence, National Reconnaissance, Security for Intelligence and Security, Security for Intelligence and Analysis, Secretary for Intelligence and Analysis, the Chief of Intelligence, and so on and so forth. You know, you get the idea. It was sent to all the higher-ups, especially those dealing with classified information. You know, matter of fact, I probably should actually go through this list and take a second look at it, because I'm sure there's probably at least a few titles here that I'm actually not following on X that I probably should be for this show. I'm just saying, look, most of these I'm definitely following already, but yeah, there actually might be a couple that I'm not. So anyway, so Nagayan had been serving in the Trump administration as the National Security Agency's first chief responsible artificial intelligence officer. His involvement in the ICA report was first revealed by Real Clear investigations earlier this month. Several others affected by Tuesday's announcement were involved in that ICA report, while some also signed onto a September 2019 statement in support of House Democrats' first impeachment inquiry into Trump. How convenient. And anything else? Being entrusted with the security clearance is a privilege, not a right, which was said by Tulsi Gabbard. Those in the intelligence community who betray their oath to the Constitution and put their own interests ahead of the interests of the American people have broken the sacred trust they promised to uphold, which I believe was in her post. So yeah, they're probably going to say basically what I already read in Tulsi Gabbard's post. Yeah, there might be a little bit more information in here if you want to go check out this article. Final product, which was supposed to provide comprehensive facts on Kremlin activities. Oh yeah, Christopher Steele. Yeah, so they're getting into the whole Russiagate thing. As the news, they like to do that to add more words to the article. They like to go back into history and repeat the same thing over and over again in all these articles just to kind of keep people up to date with what's going on, which I can respect. I understand. A lot of people, especially the independent journalists, they do it because some of them, they get paid per word they type. So if they throw in a bunch of filler stuff, they actually get paid a little more if they make their articles a little bit longer, as long as they're approved by the editors. All right, so let's go on to Secretary Kennedy. Here's the next one. This is a screenshot from American Academy of Pediatrics webpage thanking the organization's top corporate donors. These 4 companies make virtually every vaccine on the CDC recommended childhood vaccine schedule. AAP is angry that CDC has eliminated corporate influence in decisions over vaccine recommendations and returned CDC to gold standard science and evidence-based medicine, laser focused on children's health. Amen. It's about damn time. AAP today released its own list of corporate-friendly vaccine recommendations. Oh, how convenient. The Trump administration believes in free speech, and AAP has a right to make its case to the American people. But AAP should follow the lead of HHS and disclose conflicts of interest, including its corporate entanglements and those of its journal, Pediatrics, so that Americans may ask whether the AAP's recommendations reflect public health interest or if they are perhaps just a pay-to-play scheme to promote commercial ambitions of AAP's big pharma benefactors. It's almost as if Secretary Kennedy knows something and he's trying to let you know. AAP should also be candid with doctors and hospitals that recommendations that diverge from the CDC's official list are not shielded from liability under the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act. Absolutely. If this Vaccine Injury Act is designed to protect pharmaceutical companies or any health entities from getting sued due to somebody getting injured by a vaccine, especially a mandated one. Look, if you end up getting crippled from a mandated vaccine that you had to take no matter what, essentially, which I know, I get it. You don't really have to take it. Although there's probably some states that if you don't get your child fully vaccinated, they'll probably get DHS after you, or whatever it's called, in Department of Children, DCS or DCF, Department of Children and Families. That's where I'm trying to get out. DCF. Probably. Wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it were the blue states and not the red ones. Or just kind of ironically, because they keep championing freedom and you could do this and do that. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if because it's kind of weird that before COVID broke out, the people who were anti-vax were like the hardcore hippie types, the ones who are more of the sovereign citizen variety, where they would be way firmly, comfortably placed into the left category and very far from the right. But now it's kind of taken a turn to where all those people were super pro-vaccine. Go get your COVID vax, go get your 3rd, 6th, 7th, 19th booster, put on your triple masks, and just be happy with yourself. I don't care if you're driving in the car by yourself or not. You keep those windows up and you keep those 5 diaper masks on. Just insanity. It's just so weird just how gullible they've actually become. It just absolutely boggles my mind. They could even just look back in history about 15 years. I'm talking about like everyday, just regular Democrats, especially people in their 20s that were essentially born after the year 2000. If they just look back in recent history of what your classical liberals or just your everyday Democrats back in like the 90s and the 2000s, even into the 2010s, what they stood for, what they believed, like what their primary beliefs were and what they advocated the most for. It's very strange that a lot of those things that they were advocating for, they are hardcore against now, and they're starting to kind of get picked up by people on the right. It's really crazy. It's just wild. And a lot of it is just because somebody throws something out at Trump, or maybe Trump mentions something. He's like, yeah, actually, I kind of think that is a good idea. I think we should look into that. Then instantly all of it, nope, that's it. It's over. We are not supporting that ever again. Throw it in the trash. It's been tainted by the Nazis now. There's no way we can back it up anymore. Sorry, it's over. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. But anyway, here's the image that Secretary Kennedy shared. American Academy of Pediatrics, dedicated to the health of all children, corporate donors to the AAP Friends of Children Fund. The AAP would like to thank the following companies for their support of the Friends of Children Fund through an annual membership contribution to the fund. These companies are invited to a corporate summit held each summer at the AAP national headquarters in Itasca, Illinois. President Circle, $500,000 and above. Oh, look at that. Some of these names are familiar. Merck, Moderna, Pfizer, Sanofi. I'm not familiar with Sanofi, to be honest with you. But we definitely know Moderna. We definitely know Pfizer. We certainly know Pfizer. All right. Let's move on to Dan Bongino. This is a good one. So he's updating us with the latest on Operation Summer Heat. Our teams are making strides every day to keep our communities safe. Thanks to an FBI Boston investigation, a middle school librarian was arrested for distributing child S-word material. You can read it on screen. I'm trying to get used to the whole YouTube rules. I really hate how they try to suppress your speech so strongly here on YouTube. It's insane. So much for freedom of speech, right? But technically, yeah, you could say the word pornography. You could say it on YouTube. But if you just want to do YouTube as just a strictly like no way to earn anything in any way, shape, or form, then yeah, you can use the word. But if you do use the word, you're not going to get a strike. You're just not going to have any opportunity to really, not join the program. They demonetize videos, I think, if you use that word, if I understand correctly. Or the word sexually, or the word rape, or what are some other ones? Suicide, that's another one. Like that, it just very common words, common regular words that have textbook definition meanings, and now you're having to subvert those words when you're talking about those words in the context of whatever you're talking about. So you can't say rape, instead you have to say go rape with a G, grape. Or if you're talking about porn, you can't say porn, instead you have to say corn, like children of the corn. It's stupid. Because we all know what the fuck you're talking about. But YouTube they're like, well, we don't want to make the advertisers mad. We don't want the advertisers to get mad at us for featuring an ad on your video if you say the word porn. Like, who the fuck is getting irritated at that? Can you give us the name of these companies who are ass hurt over the fact that we're saying common words that even people on mainstream news usually say on a nightly basis? What the fuck, YouTube? Come on now. I mean, I love YouTube. I'm on YouTube all day long. All right. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love YouTube. I'm just saying there's some words I would agree with, but words like that, I think it's kind of stupid. It's kind of stupid. Like, instead of saying suicide, you got to say Minecraft, or you got to say Control-Alt-Delete. That's my favorite one. I thought that was hilarious when I heard somebody say that. I'm like, oh, wow. We have devolved to the point where to describe someone who off themselves, they're saying, well, this individual Control-Alt-Deleted themselves. All right, whatever. So I'll just start all over again because I went off on a stupid tangent. So our latest update from your FBI's Operation Summer Heat from Dan Bongino. This was 10 hours ago. Our teams are making strides every day to keep our communities safe. Thanks to an FBI Boston investigation, a middle school librarian was arrested for distributing child pornography. A Mexican national was charged with sexually exploiting a 12-year-old girl after an FBI Cincinnati investigation. And the FBI Charlotte Raleigh-Durham Safe Streets Task Force assisted our partners at NCSHP, which is North Carolina Safety Highway Patrol, with arresting a father and son accused of assaulting a North Carolina state trooper who is thankfully recovering from his injuries. These highlights are just a glimpse into the 85 arrests made last week under our operation, and since the operation's inception in June, we've arrested 3,900 subjects, seized 906 firearms, and recovered 132 kilograms of fentanyl and over 20,000 kilograms of cocaine. Holy shit, man. Yeah, that's the FBI I'm talking about. They're way different than they were this time last year. These are real-time results. Reducing violent crime is a promise the FBI will continue to keep. That's your FBI at its finest. More to come. God bless America and all who defend her. Wow, that was a banger of a post. They could build it. Probably almost 2 prisons based on that number of subjects that they arrested, assuming they all get convicted and then sentenced to prison. That's a pretty crowded prison, 4,000. Holy shit. All right. So let's see. Let's move on here to Howard Lutnick. Foreign competitors should never have a chokehold on America's critical supply chains. That's why reshoring these supply chains, especially our semiconductors, has been and will continue to be a central pillar of our trade negotiations. We need to have the infrastructure, the workforce, and the capacity to ensure that the technologies powering our future are made right here in America.
Sure.
Amen.
So for national security, we need to make our own chips here.
Just that alone. He could say the end right there, and that's it. For national security interests and for the security of the American people, to make sure that we're not going to be spied on by the Chinese. And you might ask, who gives a shit if China knows my address or if they have my GPS or whatever? Well, dude, that's not the point. It's not just you by yourself. It's the American population collectively, what they can do when they collect all of that information. That's why TikTok's so dangerous, by the way, in my opinion, because if you look at what Facebook collects, they collect all kinds of shit about you. Some people argue that Facebook knows you better than you know yourself because of how much info you just freely give to them and what they're able to compile with their algorithms and all that. Well, TikTok, not as detailed and not as deeply involved with your everyday life as Facebook, but they still compile a lot of information on you. They take your watching habits, your viewing habits. They can deduce what your common interests are, what you like to do. I'm sure they probably have access to your GPS because I'm sure you're on the platform while you're getting around. It's probably running in the background. There's a lot of shit that they do that they can keep track of, and they've probably got a pretty good handle as to what Americans do on a day-to-day basis. God knows what they could use it for. I don't even want to imagine, but I'm sure they could do something really nefarious with 150 million Americans' everyday data that they probably track and compile through something like TikTok, which it's somewhere around 150 million Americans on a monthly basis use TikTok. So that's why I think it should be outright banned. Just like with the chips and anything that's electronics, especially anything that connects to the internet. If it connects to the internet, we should not be making any of that shit outside of or importing any of it from outside of the United States. Anything and everything that's connected to the internet should be made right here in the USA. It should be mandated, frankly.
Here, we cannot rely on Taiwan, which is 9,500 miles away.
Well, yeah, it could be taken over by China any day now.
80 miles from China. So you can't have 99% of leading-edge chips made in Taiwan.
Especially when China still considers it the territory of China. And in fact, there's other countries out there. What was it, the Olympics? Who was it? Was it the NBA? I think it was the NBA. Do you remember a couple of years ago when you could customize an NBA jersey and somebody did something? I think they customized their jersey to say like free Taiwan or something, and they were denied. They were flat out denied a customized jersey because they wanted to get free Taiwan printed on it. The dumbest shit ever. Like, American companies are siding with China against Taiwan's sovereignty. It's gotten ridiculous. I mean, look, things have calmed down in the last year or two with regard to that. But think back to 2021, 22, even in 2023, when wokeness was just on overdrive. You know, when they were partying over at the White House during the month of June, during Pride Month, taking off their shirts like topless women running around the White House lawn. It was insanity.
We want to make them here. So that's a key part of our initiative. That's part of the deal we did with Japan. That's part of the deal we did with Korea, to have the infrastructure and economic capacity to build those chips in America. And of course, one of those pieces is it would be lovely to have Intel be capable of making a U.S. node or a U.S. transistor, you know, driving that in America. That would be lovely. That's not necessary, but as I said, that would be a really good thing to have.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could use American labor to mine the critical materials and minerals to create chips and circuit boards and motherboards and all these different electronic components from American workers into the American factories, where we're actually using labor and converting it into actual money. That would be nice if we could do it all in-house. It would be a profit machine. Not only that, but it would be an economic machine, a huge one. Because we're not relying on foreign workers and foreign outsourced materials that we just simply import without doing the work to get it. Because if you do the work to get it, that's better for the economy. It's even better.
Would be American participant in the semiconductor space.
Exactly. Because that's how money is made. Money is not made from printing. Money is made from laboring. Because you actually have to work. You have to actually do something, contribute, build something, create something in order to generate revenue. All right. So we're going to get into some election stuff because Trump made this post that I read yesterday. It was a long one. So it's here if you want to check it out. I'm not going to repost this one because it's from an unhinged senator, but I will read through. I think I posted, or I got, I think 3 or 4 of these from different Democrats with regard to Trump's post regarding mail-in ballots. He wants to end mail-in ballots by the midterm elections next year. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. I know there were 3 or maybe 4 different Supreme Court cases. I think most, if not all of them, the Supreme Court just refused to hear, going back to 2020 with regard to whether if it's mail-in ballots or other election issues that were going on. But anyway, here's one here from Senator Patty Murray. Just another totally unhinged official public statement from a president who is desperate to appeal to foreign dictators and silence Americans. But he doesn't dictate how we run our elections. Washington state votes by mail in every election. We'll keep it that way. Thanks. Isn't the United States the only country in the world, or at least, certainly in the world? I was going to say the only one in the West, but if we're the only one in the West that does mail-in voting, then, I mean, certainly third world countries, they're going to do in-person voting. They're not going to do voting by mail. I think we are the only country that allows this, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there were actually a couple of pretty good comments in here. I don't know if I left one or not. No, I don't think so. Washington didn't always vote by mail. This changed in 2011. Recent history. I used to live there. Getting an absentee ballot was a pain. It was a close thing, too. State legislator votes House 51-4, 43 against, and the Senate 26-4, 23 against. So it was close. And he's got the receipt to back it up right there. Oh, curious to know how bloober Washington got post-2011. I was wondering about that, too. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because if they put in mail-in voting, they could have rigged the system and counted a whole lot more ballots than there otherwise would have been if it was all in-person voting. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Look at this shit. Washington Democrats slash Medicaid by $782 million, and they shift the blame to Trump and the Republicans. Cut more than $750 million from Medicaid in the latest state budget, even as they blamed Washington, D.C. Republicans for it. I don't know if they actually linked it. I want to say that I came across, because I think I actually read an article about this. No, he didn't put it in here. Maybe somebody else mentioned it down here, but many countries restrict or ban mail-in voting for in-country voters due to concerns about fraud or logistical challenges. Absolutely. No mail. France, Japan, Brazil, Ecuador. The following countries restrict or prohibit mail-in voting for domestic voters: Mexico, Belgium, Italy, Sweden, Ukraine. No Middle Eastern country permits in-country mail-in voting. It's stupid. It makes no sense, man. How many precincts do we have? How many different precincts do we have across the country? What, 30,000, 50,000? It's definitely in the tens of thousands. I think just in my county alone, there's like 500 different places you can go vote. And all of them are practically a walking distance. It's probably like 20 minutes worth of walking to any given precinct in any given city. So yeah, there is absolutely no excuse to be mailing in your ballot. Not even during COVID. It was ridiculous. And maybe that's the reason why they did drop the COVID bomb. Maybe that would explain, if it were true, the Democrats colluding with the CCP to drop the COVID bomb on the world, because maybe it was all in an effort to stop Trump. I think maybe they would be that capable. Their psychopathy against President Trump, their Trump derangement syndrome, I think would have made them capable of doing that. They had the tools. They had the Wuhan research facility that the NIH was funding. Anthony Fauci apparently was funding it, or helping to fund it. Sounds like there were some people that were pretty close to it over here on the American side with regard to funding it. So, all I'm saying, you never know. I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying that, it's just an opinion that it's possible. Yeah, voter ID, paper ballots, proof of citizenship, in-person, no mass mail-in, absentee for military, disabled, and verified inability to be at a polling place, smaller precincts, national holiday, results by 9 p.m., winners announced by midnight. That's all you need. And the system has worked for decades and decades, probably centuries at this point. And there's no excuse, because they want to open up the door, the possibility to gaming that system, to cheating in that system. All right, so this one's from Senator Chris Van Hollen. Trump taking election security advice from Putin, says it all. Oh, he's taking election security advice from Putin. How exactly do you know that? You weren't in the room when he was talking to Putin. You're not on the phone call when he's talking to Putin. How the fuck do you know that they're even talking about election security in the first place? Vote by mail is safe, secure, and reliable. Trump knows it. He just wants to undermine our elections, and Putin is all too happy to help. Shameful. I'm sure that's probably a lot of comment roasting down in here too. Democrats have to cheat to win. What? I want to view it. I don't know why I muted them. Wall Street apes. I don't know. Democrats steal elections. Democrat ham-tramped Michigan Councilman Abu Musa caught stuffing a drop box with huge amounts of mail-in ballots. It's time to ban mail-in ballots in America. You want to check this out? You want to see?
New video obtained by Local 4 shows
Well.
in a black car days before the August primary. A passenger starts handing ballots to an unidentified driver, who then stuffs them into the city's drop box, in total dumping 3 large stacks before driving away. Sources tell Local
Isn't that
4
illegal?
The passenger appears to be current council member Abu Musa,
Whoa,
the same council member that is currently seeking re-election and rose to the top with more than 1,100 votes
Oh
in last
my
week's
God.
primary. He's
Yep.
also the
He
council
cheated.
member accused of not living in Hamtramck and the council member named in the 2023 election fraud case. However,
And that's what they're going to focus on. Well, he doesn't really live in the district. No, dude, you should be focusing directly on that. You should absolutely be focusing on that. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why mail-in ballots should not be a thing. Because it doesn't pertain exclusively to the presidential election. It affects local elections too. Especially when you're talking numbers like that. Only 1,000. That's it. He won the election by getting just 1,000 votes. Because local elections, not many people vote in local elections. So it really wouldn't take much to game that system and win your election if you had some sort of a decent ground game which Democrats are pretty effective at doing that, organizing these ground games. There were these organizations. I think in some states you're allowed to collect ballots from other people, ballot harvesting. I want to say there are a few states, probably most Democrat states, frankly, that allow for that. But there's organizations that were paying people $20, $30 per ballot that they collected, which has got to be illegal. Has to be. Like if some foundation were to dump, let's say $30 million into that initiative and offered anybody who wanted to join the quote unquote fight, we'll pay you $30 for every ballot that you collect. They could collect 1 million ballots, literally 1 million ballots with a $30 million donation or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't know, man. It's not good. It's not good at all. Because the Democrats at this point, they have to cheat. It's the only way they can win, because they can't win on their policies, because they have no common sense policies for sure. And anything that makes any resemblance of any kind of sense whatsoever, they don't give any solutions to them. They just talk about, well, we need this and we need that, and we're supposed to be doing this, and it's about time we get this done. But they never explain, I have a 12-point plan, the end. Okay, well, what's point number 1? No, I got 12 points. All right, that's it. Next question. So anyway, wrong communist. Putin isn't yours, forgot. Putin isn't yours, forgot. You're kissing this one. All right. Just like the Russian hoax, or pardon, January 6th, you lie. Absolutely. Democrats caught reading the same scripts, so they've been replaced with parrots that do it for free. Free! David Smith, saving Maryland dads. All right. I don't understand that one. No, this says it all. Every single Democrat voted against no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. Remember that at the midterms. Literally everything that Trump stands for, they're 100% against. Even though I bet if you ask just your everyday, on the ground, going to work, 9 to 5, middle-class Democrat, if you ask them, do you support no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security? I bet you at least 90% of them would say yes. All right, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. So we did that one. Senator Dick Durbin, who is the whip, he's the majority whip in the Senate. The Senate majority whip. I think that's what they call him, right? Democratic whip and ranking member of the Senate. That's probably what they're actually calling the ranking member of the Senate. So yeah, this dude is like one of the highest up Democrats in the party. So his name pops up in the news sometimes. But this dude, he's just as insane and brain dead as all the others. The bottom line, President Trump wants to silence the American people by making it more difficult for Americans to vote. Calling to get rid of mail-in ballots is an attack on our fundamental right to vote. I'll continue fighting to protect our democracy. And every time they say democracy, take a shot. You will be dead from alcohol poisoning inside an hour. Especially if they're up on a soapbox giving one of their long-winded, ridiculous, we're going to do nothing but talk about a lot of shit speeches. So he was responding to the New York Times. Breaking news, President Trump said he would lead a movement to eliminate mail-in ballots and that he wanted to get rid of voting machines. Trump has long opposed mail-in voting, though Republicans made electoral gains in 2024 by embracing the practice. But look, it's all feelings-based. They don't really have any good reason as to why they want to keep mail-in ballots. Other than what? People are lazy? I mean, there's no real good argument for it. Well, people have to go to work. Okay, they keep precincts open till 7. And if you really want to vote, I don't know if it's actually written in the law or not, but every year at my workplace, they always tell us the day before. Well, actually, they probably actually tell us like 2 weeks before. But we get like 2 floating holidays a year. They encourage us to take one of those floating holidays if we want to go vote. And they're also really lenient. If you have to take an extra hour for lunch, or if you need to take a few hours, if it's a long line or whatever, just give us a call. Call the workplace, let us know if you're in line and it's a long line. If you're going to vote, we don't care. You can make up your time. There's a lot of workplaces that will be very accommodating to you if you have to go vote on election day. So, yeah, anyway, let's go on to the next one. Senator Amy Klobuchar. This ought to be a good one, too. Mail-in voting is safe and secure, which is why President Trump and Republicans in Congress have repeatedly endorsed it. Elections are run by the states, not the president. We will stand up to any attempt to undermine our democracy. Again, with the democracy. Oh, yeah, by the way, I hearted these, not because I actually like them. I hearted them to put them in order because I bookmarked. So this one was 23 hours ago. That one was back on August 18th. Also August 18th. And where was the other one? Okay, so those three were August 18th. I caught them at different times. So what I did was like them, because when I set up my show, I bookmark things as I go through the day. And I wanted to put all of these with each other, so I didn't have to bring it up 4 different times throughout the show in random different places. So I hearted them. That way I could go to my profile. So I'll show you. I can go to my profile, and then I could go over to my likes, and I could scroll through. Okay, there was that one. There was that one. And when I'm going through my likes, I bookmark them from here. That way they're all in the bookmarks together. And I just forgot to remove the likes. I usually remove the likes. I just forgot to this time. So don't freak out. I don't actually enjoy their posts. I just forgot to unclick the like. That's all. No big deal. No harm, no foul. All right. So this one is from yours truly. Posted about 2 hours ago. Take a city in 2025. Oh, yeah. This is after the election stuff. We're done with all that. So this is moving on to renewable energy. We're going to talk about that for a minute. Take a city in 2025 with 1 million people using 100% wind and solar. The average monthly household electric bill will cost $375 per month. And that is excluding any profits that a company would generate. So we're not factoring in any for-profit revenue in any way at all. This is strictly the amount of money it would cost to build the infrastructure, maintain the infrastructure, and that includes the materials, the employment that's required for it, also the batteries that would have to be changed between every 10 and 15 years. So it's factoring in all of that. The maintenance, the replacement of the solar panels. The solar panels would have to be replaced every 25 to 30 years. The same with the wind turbines. I think it was every 25 to 30 years. But anyway, by using today's electric grid with profits, the average American pays $135 a month for their electricity. And again, that's including the profits that are generated by the electric company. That's how much we're paying for the electricity that we're getting today, which I believe is still primarily coal power that America as a whole is getting their power from. Of course, that's not the case everywhere. I mean, like, I think Seattle, most of theirs is hydroelectric. Las Vegas, obviously, is hydroelectric. And there's a bunch of cities that use nuclear power. So, but just our power infrastructure as it stands today, without all the renewable crap, it's $135 a month. So it's not going to cost you $375 because the companies that'll maintain that infrastructure, they want to make a profit. So they're going to charge you more like $500 a month to use renewable energy. So these Democrats that keep talking about how this is going to be way cheaper, it's going to drive down the costs, it's going to be a huge relief, it's going to be net zero, just trying to frame it in a way that makes it sound like that your electric bill is going to be practically zero is complete and utter fake news. It's ridiculous. So I brought up some receipts to back this up. So the average urban household size is between 2.5 and 2.6 people in the city. Using 2.6, a city of 1 million people, it's about 385,000 households. The per household salary collectively is about 1.7 billion. Or no, the per household annually cost will be 1.7 billion divided by 385,000 households, which breaks down to $4,400 per year worth of electricity that they're going to have to pay per month, breaking it down $375 a month. So, and this is the equivalent bill if costs were passed directly to households via utilities or taxes, excluding any profits or inefficiencies. So with wind and solar, we're probably going to get plenty of inefficiencies. But for context, current U.S. average household electricity bills are between $120 and $150 a month, but that's for mixed grids. Exclusive solar and wind would be between 2 and 3 times higher due to intermittency challenges, and then costs could drop 10 to 20% by 2030. There's that number again, 2030, with tech improvements, but rise with inflation or, I screenshotted over that, or such supply chain issues. That's what that said, supply chain issues. And the whole cost could drop between 10 and 20%. They can't know that. There's no way to possibly know that because the tech hasn't been invented. So you can't definitively say by 2030 it's going to go down by 20%. Even if it did, if you factor in the profits, you're going to still be paying like $400 a month for your electric bill, and that's just average. So just figure that should be mentioned with regard to that. And then this was just a quick one on the average electricity cost for American households is about $135 a month in 2025, based on typical consumption of about 900 kilowatt hours a month at 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And I did link this, so if you go to my profile, you could check this out. I actually asked Grok to give an analysis on this because I was just curious. So this is what I asked to get the information. How much would it cost to maintain a city of 1 million people using solar and wind power exclusively, including maintenance, equipment replacement, battery supply, and etc.? And how much would it cost for each household per month? Just looking for ballpark estimates, because Grok has a pretty bad habit of when you ask it a question straight up, it'll say, well, this is an extremely complicated question, so I can't actually answer that definitively or specifically. So I'm just going to lay out tons and tons of information for you to spend the next hour reading. And then at the bottom, I'm just going to give you some convoluted answer that's not going to be the answer you're looking for in the first place. So that's why I was asking for just a ballpark estimate. And it did. It actually gave me some pretty good information. So it goes over that. It goes over the estimate of the city's annual electricity needs, the estimate of the levelized cost of energy for a 100% wind and solar system. It goes over the details, breaks down the math, calculate annual total cost, and then break down to per household per month. And then that's where it got to the end of it. And then I asked for what the average cost today. So significantly more expensive for using renewable energy. Needless to say, but that is in response to Senator John Hickenlooper, who said Republicans voted to raise your energy bill. Yep, you heard that right. All right, so let's hear exactly what he's talking about. I'm assuming, and I haven't seen this because I don't like to watch videos until I'm in the moment recording it just to react accordingly, but I'm assuming it probably has something to do with the Trump administration cutting a lot of money that was allocated for renewable energy and carbon-free emissions and all that shit, because Trump wants to ramp up nuclear energy, which is a very good thing. We've got an AI infrastructure coming online that's going to be extremely reliant on our electrical grid, and renewable energy, solar panels, and batteries is not going to power our AI infrastructure. Like I just laid out for you, it can't feasibly even power our cities, such as a city of 1 million people today. It technically could, but do you think the average American living in that area is going to want to pay $500? Or not even $500, 2 to 3 times more than they're paying now? Because I'm sure electricity in places like New Jersey, New York City, LA, I'm sure they're not paying $150 a month on average. It's probably a lot higher than that, because I'm talking the whole national average. It equates to about $150 a month. So in these cities where you would see full wind or solar being in any way feasible, which probably wouldn't work out in a place like Seattle, for instance, or in many northern cities, but if that were even implemented, it's not going to cost $500. It's probably going to cost like $1,500, because they're going to have to put such a massive battery supply online to take care of the multiple days lack of sunlight. And just because it's a cloudy day doesn't mean it's going to be a windy day. So there's going to be plenty of days where there's no wind and very little solar. So they're going to have to be running a 1 million person city on straight up batteries. Imagine how ridiculous that actually would be. That's why this is a giant scam. And then they say, well, we're going to mix the technology. We're also looking into doing not just implementing more hydroelectric, but geothermal. We're looking at geothermal energy too. But yeah, dude, that's not widespread implemented yet. It's not really a proven thing yet, not on a wide scale level. And it's not going to happen by 2030. It's just not going to. So they're going to spend the Green New Deal, $100 trillion that they want to spend turning us into a country that runs on batteries, and that we have to replace these batteries completely every 10 to 15 years. Not possible. But anyway, now watch, he's not going to mention one word on renewables. That's going to be hilarious. But anyway, let's hear it.
Republicans voted to raise your energy bill. Yeah, you heard that right. A few weeks ago, their big, beautiful bill became law.
Oh, so
or
beautiful.
I like to call it the big, beautiful betrayal. Remember when Trump ran on lowering costs
Yeah.
for families? That was thrown out the window when he signed that bill into law that shuts down American clean energy projects. I mean,
There it is.
Everyone knows we can't
Take
just
a
get
shot.
by on oil or coal. Energy sources like wind and solar not only help us fight climate change, They make energy cheaper for Colorado and the U.S. more energy independent. Yet MAGA Republicans are determined to backtrack on these investments. And in the process, they are raising your monthly energy bill.
This man is a propagandist. This man is lying to you. He is a fucking liar, Colorado. This man is lying to you. Why would you vote for somebody who just blatantly, with a big smile on his face, lies right to you? It's not going to make your bills cheaper. How much wind and solar have they already put into Colorado so far? I bet they got a lot of wind turbines in Colorado. How much cheaper is your electricity now than it was 5 years ago? I mean, seriously. If they're putting all these renewables into practice, it should be gradually lowering your bill. But of course it's not, and they're just going to blame it on Republicans because this entire venture, this whole initiative is just completely fraudulent. It is never going to lower anybody's costs. And then, of course, here's that image again that keeps coming up. Like every single episode of it, every episode that I'm doing, this comes up at least once because it's just hilarious. The Democrats actually shared that. The Democrats' X profile. They dropped that image, and then they had to backtrack it an hour later because then they realized, oh yeah, shit, like it went crazy under Biden. Idiots. So anyway, shut the fuck up, you Green New Deal promoting totalitarian piece of shit. Yeah, that kind of sums them up. Big beautiful bill slashes bureaucratic bloat. It does. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty with that because every time they mention the bill, Doge AI basically says the same thing. Slashes bureaucratic bloat and then redirects funds to where it's better used. American energy dominance, such as nuclear energy, which is exactly where it should be going to. Look, they could build a nuclear facility. It's like they could build a 1 gigawatt nuclear facility for like $3 or $4 billion. That's it. So for $100 billion, you could build like 25 large-scale nuclear power plants and then position them wherever in the country that they're needed. And that would be a fraction of the cost of the energy equivalent that would be required from wind and solar to produce a gigawatt of electricity. It's not even close. It's like 10 times more expensive. And you gotta, like I said, you gotta replace the batteries every 10, 15 years if you have to depend on batteries for backup. And if you don't depend on batteries for backup, what are you depending it on? Coal, probably, or fossil fuel energy, whenever there's not enough renewable energy being produced by the sun or the wind. It's retarded. I don't understand how anyone can elect you. You are so mentally challenged. It's sad. Resign. You've been spending too much time in a Rocky Mountain high. Sloppy dipshit with your oversized shirt. Can you do anything except criticize your superiors? You poor ignorant bastard. Dude, he's getting absolutely obliterated, man. Like, where is one pro comment that is on his side? Senator, you got that ass backwards. Liar. How much has the big environmental climate scammers paid you to say this? I just have to ask, how are Democrats winning? How are they winning elections? It boggles my mind. Probably because of the mail-in ballot initiative, amongst other things. Wide-scale brainwashing, using the Federal Department of Education to politicize as many classrooms as they can possibly politicize. You're a communist. Solar's a scam. Wrong again, moron. Liar. Communist. I'm looking for one that's actually like agreeing with them. Well, haha, gaslighting at its best, fake news, poopy emoji. Oh, that's why my energy bills are going down. That's why I don't hear any more about the federal government confiscating my gas dryer and stove. Yeah, sorry, Hick, your leftist lies just don't cut it anymore. Bullshit, you effing liar. Lying liberal. You're a propagandist. I mean, dude, it goes on and on. You're an idiot. No one's buying your bullshit. Fraud. I mean, not a single one. Not one of them. All right. The retard button, I saw that. All right. Enough fun with that. So I'm not going to play the video again. I did forget. So Senate Republicans also replied to his video saying Democrats like Senator Hick want to spend your tax dollars on green new scam projects that caused energy prices to soar. Republicans are reversing Biden policies that made energy more expensive. Yes, they are. They're taking away that money, and either they're probably just not going to spend it at all, or if the money has to be redirected somewhere, they're going to redirect it probably into the nuclear initiative, where Trump earlier, either in the month of May or June, cut a ton of red tape to try to ramp up nuclear energy production again, which is a very good thing. It's definitely necessary. The only unfortunate thing is that it takes years to build one. All right, so this is from the U.S. Department of State, INL, thanks press secretary for laying out exactly why we're offering $50 million for information on Maduro and his heinous crimes against Americans. $50 million. If you can somehow get your hands on Maduro and turn him over to American authorities. So that would be one hell of a payday. So anyway, that's in response to this one from Marco Rubio. And we're going to play this here from Karoline Leavitt. That's very quiet.
President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice.
Sounded like she said
the Maduro
jugs.
regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country.
And there you have it. So that's Maduro in a nutshell. Caroline, you're so cute. Come on, simp. Whatever, dude. All right, so yeah. So I can backtrack. I don't want to lose my spot. So there's that. And let's move on to the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Once again, high rates are crushing home building and driving up housing costs. A rate cut would spark new construction, ease pressure on families, and make housing more affordable for years to come. Let's give this a listen on CNBC.
That we could either go back to the 90s where we had good low inflationary growth, or back to President Trump's first term. But I think the real problem here is we're seeing some distributional aspects to the higher rates, as your earlier guest said. Especially in housing and for lower income households.
Well, look, see, that is one issue that I haven't brought up recently. With regard to the interest rates, I think lowering interest rates might end up causing houses to probably by just a little bit to go up even more. I don't think lowering interest rates would send house values down, but I'm no economist. Maybe it actually will. But what I do know is that for them keeping mortgage interest rates up to 6.5, 7%, it's not exactly incentivizing anybody to want to sell their house and move into a new house, because a lot of people who have a mortgage, they've had it for more than 3, 4, 5 years, and they have a much better rate than 6 or 7%. So you really don't want to sell your house right now, because you're going to have to go move somewhere else. And if you're going to pick up another mortgage, you're going to get a much higher percentage rate than you did in the current mortgage that you have, despite the fact that your house is probably worth twice as much, if not even more, than it was when you first bought it. So yeah, there's a big incentive to sell it, because now you've got a shitload of equity, which you're going to end up throwing it away and then some if you move into another house with the same price because of the interest rate. So that's probably a lot of the reason why there's just not much movement in the housing market. But despite that, there's still a lot of houses for sale, especially in Florida. In 2021, across the entire state, there were only about 6,500 houses for sale across the entire state during the lowest period of inventory. Now, we're up over 250,000 houses that are for sale. Nobody's buying them because they're too expensive. Not only are they too expensive, the interest rates are too high. But honestly, I really think that they should just hold steady on the interest rates, if not maybe even bring them up a little higher, because there has to be some push somewhere, somehow, to bring down housing substantially. And look, it would suck for anybody who's got a house right now that's got a lot of equity, especially if you took out home equity loans and all of that. However, you got to think about the younger Americans. They're paying attention to politics. They're looking at the world around them, and they're not going to be too thrilled once they get out of high school or get out of college into the workforce and they realize the American dream, they can't have it, because nobody is going to be able to afford a $400,000 or $500,000 house. With the average American household income being around $77,000 a year, in order to afford the average priced house across America, you're going to have to make about $105,000 a year for your average household income in order to get qualified for a mortgage. It's not doable. It's like something like 78 or 80% of Americans, they flat out cannot afford a house. Like, a bank will tell them, you cannot afford this. It's going to cost more than 30% of your gross monthly or annual income, or however they break it down. But isn't that the rule of thumb? It has to be like 30% of your income or less that you have to contribute towards your mortgage per month for it to be reasonable. Otherwise, you're starting to walk into house poor territory. plus the mortgage or the cost of housing mortgage insurance or homeowners insurance is a lot higher because the average house is so expensive now. A lot of the reason because these building materials are more expensive. So we got to figure out a way to bring down building material costs too, so that way they can build more houses, because they've been saying that we've been in a new housing shortage since 2008. We haven't been building new houses at the rate that we were pre-2008, which is also contributing to high house costs. Plus, there's the illegal immigrant situation. They all got to live somewhere. They're not all buying houses, but they are renting a lot, and that's contributing to high rent costs. And it's just a huge problem, and it's nice to finally have somebody mention it on the Republican side, because nobody really is. I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene last week mention it, how we got to figure out how to get housing down. Because housing, it's got to come down to like 200,000 on average. And it sounds laughable at this point because it's been high for 3-4 years at this point, but still, it's got to happen somehow.
With high credit card debt. So we're seeing this big CapEx boom. Part of it's AI, part of it's the tax bill. And so CapEx is doing well, but households, home building is struggling. And you were asking me about interviewing Fed candidates, and there's the ability, everyone has the ability to look at the current data, but let's just think about if we keep constraining home building, then what kind of inflation does that create 1 or 2 years out? So, a cut here could facilitate a boom or a pickup in home building, which will keep prices down 1-2 years down the road.
I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I think it'd be marginal at best if they pick up house building. Plus, the way they build new houses these days, you think that they would be super solid structures because of all the red tape and all the regulations, and you have to have your light sockets every 6 feet apart, and anyway, yeah, the construction, all the regulations have been crazy, to say the least. And you think that houses would be constructed better than ever because of that, but they're not. If you go over on TikTok and you look up new home inspection or new home inspector, you'll be pretty shocked to see how many shitty houses are being built today. All kinds of houses are just built atrociously bad. And I don't know if it's because they're using maybe illegal immigrant construction workers, or if they're just using dirt cheap materials. I think that's got a lot to do with it, is because they're using bargain basement materials and they're trying to find the cheapest labor they possibly can so they can get the biggest profits that they can. But there was a story earlier this summer. There was a neighborhood, I want to say it was in Colorado, I think, actually, where it was probably a bow echo. It was a severe thunderstorm that moved in the area, and it brought like a 50 or 60 mile an hour wind gust. It was just a gust of wind. It wasn't a tornado or anything like that, but there was one neighborhood, it destroyed like a dozen new homes. They literally tipped over and they just collapsed, and they were still under construction, so the walls weren't there yet. So it was the wood frame for the most part, and then there was some siding or whatever. Like some of the houses looked like they were halfway built, but over a dozen of them just simply tipped over after the wood construction was already in place. It's like, yeah, dude, they're building these houses like shit, man. It's kind of scary, but I don't know, man. I'm not an expert on housing, so I don't have all the answers for that. But anyway, let's move on to this one from the White House. President Trump has signed the Maintaining American Superiority by Improving Export Control Transparency Act into law. That's a mouthful. So I actually think that they might have linked the article. At least I hope they did. Yeah, here we go. From the whitehouse.gov. It's Bill H.R. 1316 that Trump signed into law today. And we'll see what this says. So I don't like to make it smaller than it was, but this stupid social media tab is in the way. So on Tuesday, August 19th, the president signed into law H.R. 1316, Maintaining American Superiority by Improving Export Control Transparency Act, which amends the Export Control Reform Act of 2018 to require the Secretary of Commerce to report annually to Congress on applications for dual-use export licenses. All right. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I guess we can find out in layman's terms. What did I do with that? Here we go. So I guess I can just go to... Oh, I'm not signed in over here? Well, that's strange. All right. Let's see. Let's see if this might kick back anything. I'm just curious because I don't know the details on it. I don't know exactly what it specifically is. I know it has to do with exports. So the Transparency Act, H.R. 1316, is a U.S. law passed in 2025 that amends the Export Control Reform Act of 2018. It requires the Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security to submit annual reports to Congress on export control licensing for dual-use goods and military items. These reports detail license applications, enforcement actions, and compliance measures for exports to certain entities, especially those in countries like China, to enhance transparency and strengthen national security. Okay, well, that's good. Licensing for dual-use goods and military items. Okay, all right. So basically just making sure that what we're sending over to China isn't going to harm our national security. At least that's what I'm getting out of it. So, yeah, it's a good thing. Definitely not the most exciting news of the day, but that happened today. That was in the news today. And that's part of the post. That's not my next item to talk about. So this one from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Drug trafficking and weapons charges were filed against 5 top leaders of the Mexico-based Carteles Unidos, one of the world's most dangerous cartels and a recently designated foreign terrorist organization. There are rewards between $3 and $10 million for each who are still at large. So, and these are the names here: Juan Jose Farias Alvarez, Alfonso Fernandez, Magellan, Luis Enrique Barragan Chavez, Edgar Orozco Cabadas, and Nicholas Sierra Santana. And if you have any information, you can get hella paid. And I'm sure they'll let you remain anonymous if you did. If you had any ability to know where they are, and you can report them. Let's see what this says. Oh, it's just music. Is it just music? Yeah, it's just music. Whatever. But I mean, they're showing you who they are. There's a lot of money. A lot of money, man. All right. So let's go on straight to the next one from Karoline Leavitt. Once again, from the beginning of this process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in his pursuit of peace. This is the atomic bomb I was talking about at the beginning of the episode. President Trump finally broke the deadlock between Russia and Ukraine and created a real opportunity for a lasting peace for the first time in 3.5 years of brutal war. But instead of accurately reporting the facts, dishonest outlets are actively trying to sabotage these peace efforts. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at its lowest point in more than 5 decades. This is a 2 minute. 2 minutes. This is going to be a banger. Hold on. Let me adjust this volume up here a little bit. All right, let's go, man.
Changed is the media's negative and downright false coverage of President Trump and his foreign policy accomplishments. From the beginning of this entire process, much of the left-wing media has been actively rooting against the President of the United States in the pursuit of peace. Initially, the media ridiculously claimed that President Trump was somehow beholden to Russia for even agreeing to have a face-to-face discussion with President Putin inside of the United States. The media said President Trump was making a grave mistake by, quote, legitimizing Putin. They were aghast that President Trump would treat another world leader like a world leader. The media relentlessly attacked President Trump and claimed he suffered a, quote, major defeat for not immediately emerging with a final agreement, even though he said heading into that meeting this was a meeting to listen and to understand how to move the ball forward. All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same
Just this year.
president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term.
Yes, he did.
On top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone.
In the Middle East, too.
We also saw yesterday the president of Ukraine and all of the other major leaders of Europe fly across the Atlantic Ocean to meet President Trump at the White House because of the progress that was made and that, if you ask the media, failed meeting,
between
but
him
it was
and Putin.
not. It was highly productive and it was successful. This is why Americans' trust in the mass media is at a lowest point in more than 5 decades. Diplomacy is a delicate process, and instead of reporting the facts about what is happening here at this White House and what is happening between this president and other leaders around the world, many outlets in this room continue to try to actively undermine the president and sabotage the efforts towards peace. That is why I felt the need to set the record straight.
Absolutely, man. Man, she fucking torched him, man. That was a hell of a good rant that she went on. Just absolutely deplorable what they're doing. And they know what they're doing. That's what makes them so damn evil. They don't care. It's just Orange Man bad, and that's it. Bottom line. We hate Orange Man, and we're willing to sabotage the entire planet just because we don't like somebody. They are psychopaths. All of them. I can't believe anybody even listens to him anymore. So there's a few extras from Karoline Leavitt that she posted today that I felt should be, or that I know should be mentioned at the very least. So Trump's approval rating spikes amid Ukraine peacemaking efforts, new poll finds, which it was put on the Daily Wire, which is biased. So I didn't actually look to see exactly where the poll originated from. So I don't know if the Daily Wire ran their own. But no, the survey conducted by Insider Advantage, not familiar with them, but let's just say that they're in the middle. I mean, not that there really is a middle anymore, but they ran the poll between August 15th and 17th, and they found that 54% of respondents approved of Trump, while 44% expressed disapproval. Separated by age group, 57% of respondents in the 18 to 39 and 39 to 64 demographics approved of the president, compared to 40% of respondents 65 and older. It's really interesting that the old-timers, they really don't like the guy, I guess. Trump's ratings are also up among Black and Hispanic respondents, according to polling analyst Matt Towery. The results come amid Trump's efforts to broker peace in Ukraine. Yeah, we get it. European leaders. Oh shit, where did it go? Yeah, I want to reload it. What the hell happened? Oh, wait, hold on. Where did it go? That was weird. My tabs moved. All right, so where the hell were we? Damn it. All right, so Insider Advantage has a least biased rating from Media Bias and was rated as one of the top 10 polling services covering general elections from 2014 to 22 by Real Clear Politics, coming ahead of several legacy media outlets and YouGov. So there you have it. The new numbers are at odds with many recent polls, which claim a negative approval rating. In a Pew Research Center poll from the beginning of August, 38% of respondents expressed approval and 60% disapproval. Yeah, it just depends on who you're asking. Who are they calling? Are they calling just the major metropolitan cities like New York, Chicago, LA, those places? Probably. The surge in public approval comes in the wake of Trump's Alaska summit. Yeah, we get it. But anyway, yeah, man, his numbers are up. From a poll, Insider Advantage, which is supposed to be pretty in the middle, one of the least biased ratings agencies. So there you go. I'll leave that linked below. And this one, Dems in disarray as Trump cracks down on DC crime. Yeah, they are freaking out, man. It just never stops with them. Never stops with them. It would be a good thing if there was no crime in DC, but the Democrats, they believe the opposite. They believe that crime just simply doesn't exist. Don't believe your lying eyes. There is no crime in DC. It's the best in 30 years. So why should you do anything? Just leave it alone. Just let DC do what DC does best. And it's totally not crime. It can't be crime. Because we say it's not, so therefore it's not. Anyway, Democrats are reportedly struggling to develop a message to counter President Donald Trump's efforts to stamp out violent crime in Washington, D.C. Some Democrat strategists told The Hill in a piece published Monday that they feel unhappy with their party's response to Trump's crime crackdown thus far. The report comes a week after Trump declared on August 11th that he is deploying the National Guard to assist in tackling the capital city's crime crisis. Quote, these crime statistics, as impressive as they are no substitute for how people feel and what they see, and Washington residents still feel like crime is too high and too pervasive, and that reality has created this opening for Donald Trump, said Democratic strategist Anthony Coley, who lives in D.C., and he told The Hill. Now, that is no excuse for this political stunt he is trying to do, but from a raw political perspective, you never want to give your political opponent an opening to address a real concern that your constituents have. Additionally, Democratic strategist Basil Smikle told The Hill that he thinks there is an impression among some voters that Democrats can be soft on crime. Yeah, you think? And that progressives are too lax on criminals and criminal activity. Yeah, absolutely. With the whole, what is it, like no cash bail, and also places like in LA where they're not prosecuting people who steal less than $900 worth of merchandise from stores, which is leading to places like Walgreens and CVS completely just closing up altogether and just leaving the city entirely. Or they're putting everything behind plexiglass now. So if you want to go get a bottle of mouthwash, you have to go get a sales associate to go unlock the freaking cabinet for you so you can get a freaking bottle of mouthwash or a package of freaking toothpicks or some shit. And that's what they're doing because they just want to pretend that it doesn't exist, even though it is literally all around you. You have to have a store associate follow you all over the place to freaking go shopping these days in these big cities. One of the reasons, one of the reasons that Trump has taken to this is because there's this impression that Democrats are soft on crime and that progressives are too lax on criminals and criminal activity. I think it's important to say that crime has gone down in part because communities did respond to the high crime rates. It wasn't just more policing, and I think that's a very important point that they need to hammer home. It isn't just more policing. I already went over that the other day. In Washington, D.C., they have one police officer for every 200 residents. In your average city across America, it's one police officer for every 417 residents. So D.C. has more than twice the police force as the national average in urban areas. So it's not the number of police that's the problem. It's the administration. It's the people that are running the police. They don't care. They just want crime for some reason. It's really weird. Can't really get my head around it, but that's just how they want things. The president said Monday in a Truth Social post that people are flocking to D.C. again due to his administration's crime crackdown. Until 4 days ago, Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe city in the United States and perhaps the world, Trump wrote in a social media post. Now, in just a short period of time, it is perhaps the safest and getting better every single hour. People are flocking to D.C. again, and soon the beautification will begin. Many Democrats have notably criticized Trump for moving to combat crime in the nation's capital, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who claimed in an August 11th X post that the president has zero credibility on the issue of law and order. Moreover, Democrat D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab announced Friday that he is suing the Trump administration due to its takeover of the Metro Police Department of the MPD. Schwab claimed in an X post announcing the lawsuit that this is the gravest threat to home rule D.C. has ever faced, and we are fighting to stop it because they want crime. On August 11th, YouGov poll notably found that 37% of voters think crime rates in U.S. cities have increased a lot since 2020, which they have. If you open your eyes, if you live in these cities, all you have to do is just look around. Not in every single neighborhood. I'm just saying as a whole, there are areas of the city where crime is substantially worse than it was pre-2020. So let's see. There is more about who you are going to believe. Democratic strategist Rodell Molineux told The Hill. Molineux. I think it's Molineux, isn't it? There's a lot of dog whistle in there, and if people are susceptible to believing that, then it's hard to combat it. It's hard to say that you should respond with anything but the truth, even if some people don't want to hear the truth. This is performative, and it's not actually getting the results. I think that's where we need to go, but I do think that there's going to be a population that's never going to believe us. Still, Smikle told The Hill that he does not believe Democrats are out of touch. I don't think Democrats are out of touch because crime has gone down in these cities, so they know how to police their cities. Dude, fudged up statistics, man. There's a lot they're not putting in those statistics. Smikle told the outlet they have to just remind voters that they brought crime down in their cities, and they just know how to do that. Well, then why is crime so insanely high? Even if it's at its 30-year low, I mean, you can't argue against the fact that crime is still one of the worst levels of any U.S. city in Washington, D.C. But it's not down at its lowest in 30 years. It's just fudged up numbers because they don't report a lot of crimes. Like they'll report like the top tier, most violent crimes, the highest felonies that they'll put in there. But then a lot of those misdemeanors and a lot of those non-violent crimes, they just don't factor into it at all. So it makes it look like it's a lot safer than it actually is. All right, so I think that's it actually for Karoline Leavitt. So this one's from Secretary Kristi Noem. America has a moral, economic, and national security duty to eradicate threats that endanger our nation's prosperity including unfair trade practices that disadvantage the American people and stifle our economic growth. The Trump administration is taking action. The use of slave labor is repulsive, and we will hold Chinese companies accountable for abuses and eliminate threats its forced labor practices pose to our prosperity. And I want to say that I read this already, didn't I? Maybe not. Today, Secretary Noem announces the designation of new Chinese industry sectors as high priority for enforcement under the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Yeah, I did. I read this earlier, didn't I? Pretty sure I did. So it restricts Chinese goods made with forced labor from entering the U.S. So anyway, we'll move on to... I'll at least bring up this article. I won't read it, but I will at least link it in the description if you want to check it out. Yeah, this is 7 minutes long. It's a bit long. You know what? I'll play at least a little bit because I am a bit curious with regard to rare earth mineral reserves. And, I mean, if they're going to talk about it, I'll hear them out for a minute at least.
What we are trying to do in this administration...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was the Treasury Secretary we were listening to.
With China, there's 6, 7 strategic
This is a
industries
different
that we saw
topic,
during COVID,
though.
That the Chinese were not reliable suppliers. We're also seeing with rare earth magnets, they've imposed export controls.
Yeah, they got like 98% of the supply.
Self-sufficient and dominant in those areas.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warning Maria the U.S. can no longer rely on China to supply America with rare earth minerals. Experts from the Energy Fair Trade Coalition calling for an investigation into the Chinese minerals trade with America, warning about the potential weaponization of those resources. China is one of the largest exporters of rare earth minerals, sending $119 million to America last year. I want to bring in Executive Director of the Energy Fair Trade Coalition, Brett Manley. Brett, good morning. And one of the things that the Wall Street Journal has reported is that the Chinese, in the middle of these trade negotiations, began to restrict their exports of rare earth minerals that were critical for our defense industry.
That's why you don't give them the power to do so. We should have been mining it here at home from the get-go.
That President Trump is keenly aware of, and that's the concept.
I'm sure we've got the resources.
If you turn the economy into a service-based economy,
it's been locked up by entities like the EPA.
To control the inputs to our critical materials here, whether it's defense systems or power systems or food systems, you're really giving other countries leverage over the United States. And we've seen Trump, in a variety of things, really try to turn the tails on competitors in terms of leverage. And what they're doing here, by incentivizing investment in critical minerals here at home, is trying to bring that here to the States. But really, I think it's a three-prong approach that they need to take. One is the investment. We're glad to see the DOE announcement from Friday about new money into critical minerals. But two, we really have to cut regulations that prohibit the ability of Americans to develop these things here. We have a lot of these materials, but frankly, we end up shipping them overseas.
Man, it's not even
because
close,
the processing power is elsewhere, either because it's cheaper or it's faster. We don't have it here. And a lot of times that's because we restrict the building of these things through environmental concerns or just sheer regulation.
The
final piece of the puzzle is enforcing import bans we have against things like critical minerals from China with ties to forced labor. And you've seen the Trump administration increase their enforcement of these things. Just recently, Hanwha Q-Cells had their shipments into the United States.
They don't care about the environment. They care about money.
Forced labor. And of course, they also
own the
Philly shipyard. So these are really global companies that do business in the United States, and the incentive should be for them to manufacture these products here. It's both good for us in the short term, but certainly in long-term national security.
And we're starting to see that in particular in Nevada with some mining and some explorations and actually
and in
some
Utah.
accidental finds.
Mines are opening up in Utah too.
Nevada. The U.S. Energy Department took action to secure our domestic critical minerals and materials. They issued notices of funding opportunities worth nearly $1 billion to advance production in America's supply chain, Brett. Is this a good step, do you think? Does this help us kind of fight back against China?
Hopefully of many, many more.
Yeah, it's an excellent step. And as I said, it's one of the three prongs, right? You need the financial incentive
funding,
to invest here, but I think the president can take it a step further.
Lift all the red tape.
The Defense Production Act. Allow these projects, to get around some of the local building or permitting regulations. We hear the administration talk about this a lot. Permitting is a very slow process. It inhibits building, it inhibits growth. Invoke the Defense
China
Production
doesn't have
Act,
to deal with that problem.
Allow access to the money and allow it to flow quickly into projects.
They want to dig, they dig.
Stood up and proven in a short time frame. Additionally, we're seeing a lot of advancements with AI. We should encourage these folks to take advantage of AI manufacturing processes as they get better.
Yeah, but ironically, AI equals electricity. It's very heavily energy dependent. And the more AI they build out, And if they don't build up an electrical infrastructure to keep up with the pace of AI, it's going to cost more and more money for you and me to have to pay our electric bills.
The only way we're going to compete is if we're more efficient. Certainly the standard of living we have here, wages are going to be higher, living conditions are going to be higher, certain things are going to be more expensive. To the extent that we can improve efficiency, we should take advantage of that as well.
What are President Trump's ultimate goals here? Is obviously to make the world dependent on American energy, certainly, but really protect the grid, make America so energy dominant that we are protected in a national security sense. Maria spoke with Energy Secretary Chris Wright about all of this. Watch.
President Trump has sold U.S. energy around the world. The interest is just tremendous. Who wouldn't rather buy from a secure ally as opposed to a threatening foe? But President Trump is a tenacious salesman, a tenacious negotiator, and you're seeing these dramatic changes of where energy supplies are coming from. Our allies abroad, their dominant source of energy that's imported is going to be the United States.
Brett, your reaction?
Hope so.
No, he's absolutely right. And you can see this back in the first Trump administration when he criticized Europe for relying on Russian oil. And what has happened? You see this now when they're trying to end the war in Ukraine. The European Union is still relying on imports of oil from Russia. You're seeing this play out in real time on the world stage. President Trump is thinking, what happens to the United States 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Absolutely.
We may not always be in this dominant military position. Technology changes rapidly. We need to ensure that the energy we have that fuels our economy is produced here in the United States so another country doesn't have leverage over us. And I think the president understands that keenly, and a lot of the world is catching up to where he was 8 years ago.
No, that's absolutely true.
If they have that kind of leverage over us, they'll get to a point where they'll own us.
The security of the energy grid is something that from whether it's a hacker that could come from China, from Russia.
All right. Well, yeah, we get the gist of it, but I'll leave this linked down there in the description if you want to check it out. So let's go back to primary lists that I've got here. So this one is also from DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Over the past few months, I've been working closely with our partners in the UK alongside the president and vice president to ensure Americans' private data remains private and our constitutional rights and civil liberties are protected. As a result, the UK has agreed to drop its mandate for Apple to provide a backdoor that would have enabled access to the protected encrypted data of American citizens and encroached on our civil liberties. So that's good news. I know they were trying to get that passed for a while, and I'm pretty sure Apple was pushing back pretty strongly about that, or with regards to that, because Apple doesn't want anybody inside their proprietary information. I mean, even the FBI, even like the federal government has been pushing Apple pretty strongly with access to their information. But Apple, they just keep saying no. And there's been a few high-profile instances where, I can't remember. It was in California. There was this like Muslim mass shooter, like man and woman. This was like several years ago. And they both had iPhones, and the iPhones were locked up. And the FBI went to Apple to get them unlocked, and Apple denied them. Like they had to go get a court order because Apple stood by their company policy that like if you don't have permission from like whoever owns the phone, then like we can't help you unless you have to get a court order or whatever. Yeah, I don't know, but apparently Apple's been pretty tough on that over the years. So I'm sure they're pretty happy about this, about how that's not going to happen now. Plus the UK, man, they don't need our information. I'm sure they probably want it for their citizens, but still, I mean, if it opens up the door to our citizens too, then that's problematic because that's a slippery slope. If you give it to the UK, you got to give it to the American federal government too. So it's good that's not going to happen. But anyway, from U.S. Fleet Forces, the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, they seized nearly 1,300 pounds of cocaine in Eastern Pacific. This is in addition to the, 5,500 or 6,500 kilograms that they seized over the weekend. A U.S. Coast Guard law enforcement detachment embarked aboard the guided missile destroyer USS Sampson and interdicted a suspected drug smuggling vessel back on August the 11th. And of course, they have a press release news article on that if you want to check that out. There's some images of the Los Dragos. And this is from Todd Blanche, thrilled to welcome Andrew Bailey as our new FBI co-deputy director. As Missouri's attorney general, he took on the swamp and fought weaponized government and defended the Constitution Now he is bringing that fight to the Department of Justice. So yeah, we got a new FBI co-deputy director. And the next one, Attorney General Pamela Bondi, at the direction of the President of the United States, our nation's capital is a safer place, and we are just getting started. 52 arrests were made just last night alone, including an MS-13 gang member, and 9 firearms were taken off the streets. Since our mission began, there have been a total of 465 arrests, 68 guns seized, and charges for homicide, narcotics, and firearm offenses. Nearly half of these arrests occurred in the high crime areas of D.C. Residents and tourists alike appreciate this extraordinary effort by our D.C. and federal law enforcement partners. Make D.C. safe again. And she posted that just 12 hours ago, this morning at 8:35 a.m. Eastern in Florida time. So Rapid Response 47, this is from Donald J. Trump, the man himself. Stupid and ugly windmills are killing New Jersey. Energy prices are up 28% this year, and not enough electricity to take care of the state. Stop the windmills. Oh, but it's all Trump's fault electricity's going up. It's all his fault. They don't tell you why, but it's all his fault. And because we say that it's so, you just have to blindly believe us. So anyway, speaking of energy, this is from the U.S. Department of Energy. Wind and solar energy cannot power America alone. No, I have said that so many times. It is not even remotely possible. When the wind slows and the sun sets, the grid needs dependable energy. Yeah, they do. But what do the Democrats want? It'll get to the point where the Democrats, they'll just say, well, then just shut off your power overnight. I mean, like, you got to go to bed anyway, so what the fuck do you need power for? Just turn off your power. Or, you know what, like, the electrical grid, we're getting into desperate times because, you know, we're doing it for the earth. It's for climate change. So we're going to cut power to entire neighborhoods for like 5-6 hours at a time. Do this like controlled rolling blackout situation or brownout situation. So you might have to go a few hours without power, but it's okay. It's only going to be from like 11 p.m. to like 6 o'clock a.m. You know, everybody's got alarms on their phones these days, so it's not a big deal. They will downplay it to like the umpteenth degree or lack thereof. And that's the future they want. That's the future that they're looking to get. And it's all going to be in the name of climate change. We have to save the earth. Our nation is home to vast untapped resources. Coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy deliver unwavering power for generations. And switching gears to the White House, a historic day at the White House as European leaders joined President Trump in the Oval Office. President Donald J. Trump is the president of peace. Posted 11 hours ago, 9:30 this morning from the White House. So you got a couple of images there. All the leaders positioned around Trump's desk in the Oval Office as they discuss very important matters with regard to the Russia and Ukraine conflict. Hopefully they're all on board with it. I just had that weird sinking feeling that all of these European leaders were going to join Zelensky to act as like his entourage to back him up because he's not giving an inch to Putin. He's not backing down. The show must go on. It's going to go on. So we're going to help you stand up against evil Orange Man. But it doesn't sound like it actually turned out that way. It actually sounds like it was really productive, which I really hope it was. I absolutely hope it was. But I'm sure we're going to hear more information as time goes on. Once they get into talks with Putin and they start exchanging information, you know, they're not going to reveal everything right now. It's just the process of diplomacy during times of war. All right, so from Washington, House Republicans. Rep. Travis Kocher, Democrats slash over $750 million from Medicaid while blaming D.C. Okay, so that's where that came from. I thought I saw that somewhere, and I thought that I had linked it somewhere. So anyway, so House Republican budget lead Rep. Travis Kocher, R. from Allen, blasted state Democrat budget writers Monday after new data revealed Medicaid cuts passed last session totaled more than $750 million. Democrats didn't just cut Medicaid, they cut out the truth and blamed others, especially Trump. According to the Nonpartisan Office of Program Research, the budget passed by Democrats and signed by Governor Bob Ferguson in 2025 slashes over $782 million from Medicaid, $446 million in federal funds, and $336.5 million in state matching dollars. Nearly 95% of the reductions hit general medical care, services for people with disabilities and seniors, and long-term care assistance. Why? What would their reason be for doing that? Unless they wanted to make it worse than what it truly was in order to make Trump and the Republicans look worse. That's the only reason I can think of. We're going to cut it, but we're going to tell the public that it wasn't us who cut it, that it was actually the big bad evil Republicans who did it. This is how psychopathic that they're getting. It's absolute psychopathy. They're insane. So anyway, quote, "That is not just astonishing, it is disgraceful," Kocher said. While they gutted Medicaid, they pointed fingers at the federal government. From Governor Ferguson, we've heard quotes like, "This morally bankrupt decision will cause our most vulnerable Washingtonians to lose their health care coverage and likely force hospital closures across the state," in reference to H.R. 1. But the truth is this happened even before H.R. 1 took effect because of a budget passed by legislative Democrats and signed by him, and we have the receipts to prove it. Democrats hit hospitals with both program cuts and new taxes in 2025, costing $120 million in 2026 and rising to $239 million by 27. These cuts will further destabilize Washington's hospitals, which have already lost more than $4 billion since 2021, according to the Washington State Hospital Association. House Republicans fought to protect access to care, including an amendment to boost Medicaid reimbursement rates, but Democrats blocked them. Hey, see whose fault it is at the end of the day? This mix of cuts and taxes will impact all medical care in our state, not just Medicaid patients. And to make matters worse, Democrats siphoned money from Medicaid to help pay for bureaucrat pay raises. That is unconscionable. Kocher called on Democrats to end the hypocrisy, own the damage they've done, and fix it before it costs lives. That ain't gonna happen. They're just gonna blame Trump. In the meantime, Kocher said House Republicans will be working on a solution in the lead up to the 2026 session. Yeah, you should absolutely take control of that. Try to flip Washington red. I don't know, man. I think maybe, I hope I'm wrong, but it might seem that too many people living in Washington, they're just politically gone at this point. As soon as they hear that you're a Republican, they're instantly going to plug their ears, start screaming la la la, and then just run away. And that's most likely, I think. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I've never been to Washington State before. I don't know. All I know is what I see on the internet and occasionally on TV or YouTube or places like that. So anyway, let's move on to Rapid Response 47 from Secretary Rubio. I could read his quote, or we could just play it and let him say it. So
well, I think the whole thing was a big moment.
God.
Unprecedented.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was holy shit loud.
Here, 7.
Yikes, man. Let's try that again. Oh my God,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
the whole thing was a big moment. Unprecedented, really, when you think about all these European leaders came here. 7 that were there and that included the head of NATO and the head of the EU. And they all said the same thing, which is this, after 3 years of sort of deadlock and no talks and no change in circumstances, this is the first time where there seems to be some movement. Now, look, this is a complicated war. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this has been going on for 3.5 years. A lot of people have died. A lot of territories exchanged back and forth.
Hundreds of thousands.
So it's not an easy thing to unwind. But nothing was happening on this war. Literally, the only option that we were given under the previous administration was
10 years.
Continue to fund Ukraine for however much they need, for however long it takes. And now you have people actually talking about pathways towards ending it. Now, it's going to take a little bit more work and a little bit more time, but we are making progress. It's not me saying it. That is virtually every leader there today said that in front of the cameras, and they're saying it for a reason, because it's true and they're witnessing it and they've been a part of it.
Now, I just realized, again, I apologize for that sound. Holy shit. I totally did not intend on that happening. Did you know that Volodymyr Zelensky and some of his buddies, they are funneling $50 million a month into bank accounts in the United Arab Emirates? They're siphoning money away from dollars that were allocated to the war effort. They're dumping it into bank accounts, $50 million a month. And let me see if I can find it without getting rid of one of these tabs. Hold on a sec. Yeah, let me just bring this up here. I actually shared that, I believe, on my Sunday episode, which I had to scrap because the sound was just unbelievably atrocious. So let's see. I'm trying to think if I should use Grok or if I should just go to Google. All right. I don't know if I'm going to get... Wow, really? They're not... What? Oh, fuck, man. Okay, hold on. That's right. It was from Sputnik. Let me try that. Yeah, it was from some obscure news place, but it was shared by a government official. Oh, I wish I could remember offhand who it was. I don't think it was Tulsi Gabbard. It might have been Tulsi Gabbard. Let's see. Yeah, it is a Russian state-owned news agency, but they just reported it. They didn't compile the information. It came from a different organization. That's why I was hoping that I'd be able to find it. Maybe this one's it. This one might have been it. It's like a Turkish entity. Hold on. Where is it? Since last year. That's it. Aidenlick. So they're the ones who published this information. So let me see. Oh, shit. My bad. I'm just trying to figure out which organization is it. Several places in Turkey. Yeah, it has to do with some entity. It was like some, like a news agency or something. Well, anyway, I don't want to get lost in the weeds on that, but oh, Turkish newspaper, duh. Turkish newspaper Aidenlick published on Monday the bank accounts of companies based in the UAE involved in the corruption scheme of Volodymyr Zelensky's cronies. About 50 million are transferred to the Middle Eastern country every month. Since last year, Ukraine has been rocked by allegations of corruption, which can strike the Kiev government in the very heart, the newspaper reported, adding that the main problem for Zelensky is that his inner circle is also involved in the corruption case. Zelensky's closest circle transfers about 50 million a month to the accounts of two companies linked to Andrei Jamirin, the alleged disposer of funds obtained through corruption, the newspaper reported. Both companies are based in the United Arab Emirates. GFM Investment Group, LLC. Now get this, they've got bank account numbers. They've got the numbers. UAE number 967369, which it could be a routing number. I mean, I don't know. Number 117072666. Emirates NBD bank account number. Here's the bank account number. AE 2102600010157929400701. That's the bank account number where $50 million a month is being funneled into from Ukraine, allegedly from Zelensky and his cronies. And Jamirin Family Holding Limited, UAE number ICC 20210636, number 11664-590, the newspaper reported. Jamirin, who is a former consultant to the State Property Fund of Ukraine, is under international investigation in connection with his complex network of companies and a portfolio of luxury goods in France, UAE, and Europe, the newspaper reported. So this is the Turkish newspaper that's reporting all of this, and it looks like Sputnik is just, echoing it. And I'm sure Sputnik, I'm sure it is some Russian agency. I mean, it's called Sputnik, for crying out loud. But anyway, yeah, so that's just all the details that it has, at least as of right now. But it's kind of interesting how, and you know what, I will link that in the description too. Just let me. So claims about Ukraine president inner circle transferring 50 million monthly to UAE-based shell companies have been published by the Turkish newspaper. These claims are often amplified by outlets such as Sputnik, which is a Russian state-owned news agency and radio broadcast service. Multiple sources, including the European Parliament and several European studies, have accused Sputnik and RT of engaging in disinformation and spreading false narratives. Yeah, but isn't it backed up by this Turkish news entity? I mean, you would be calling them liars, basically, because Sputnik is just kind of a by proxy publication with regard to this story. So, I mean, I'm sure they're probably spreading it all over the place, because if it's true, it's pretty freaking damning, to say the least. And, I mean, why wouldn't they report that? Look, if they found out that Vladimir Putin was funneling $50 million into some Swiss bank account that was most likely earmarked for war funds, even if it wasn't earmarked for war funds, if he was just transferring $50 million into an account that he has control over, don't you think that probably the EU and Ukraine obviously would be reporting the hell out of that? Of course they would. But anyway, so in February of 2022, the European Union banned Sputnik and RT following the Russian... Dude, that is irrelevant, dude. As far as I'm concerned, that's irrelevant because they're not the ones that originally reported it. All they're doing is just essentially repeating what they've already read from somebody else. So, yeah, anyway, but I will link that article if you want to check that out. I did read the whole thing, but it'll be there if you want to look into it further. And if you know more about that, like legit, if you actually know more about that, because I don't know anything beyond what I just read, drop something in the comments. Let me know. I would be very appreciative. So this is from the White House. Peace and American leadership are back under President Trump. Let's take a look at this. Saw the leaders showing up the other day. Looks like Macron still had a hand mark on his face. I saw him greet Zelensky. I didn't see him greet anybody else. There you go. From the White House, sitting down to have that very important meeting. See how things play out. Hopefully it goes well. I'm rooting for it to be over. I just want it to all be over. That way we can quit dumping money into it, even though the European Union, they're paying for all the weapons now, supposedly. But they're also buying the weapons from us. So I guess technically, like, whatever companies are making those weapons for Ukraine, they're war profiteers at this point. I mean, let's be real. They always are. All right, so from the GOP, under the radical leadership of Gavin Newsom, AOC, and Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Party is in disarray. Quote, we are going to continue as a Republican Party to listen to our voters, understand the issues they care about, and put solutions on the table. Let's take a listen to this.
The Democratic Party is in disarray because they just keep going left. And with leaders like Gavin Newsom and Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Zohran Mamdani,
all the way down to hell.
That is not going to connect in North Carolina. It's not going to connect in Middle America. It's not going to connect in Georgia or Michigan or Maine or any of the other states where we've got
people are waking up.
So we are going to continue as a Republican Party to listen to our voters, understand the issues they care about, and put solutions on the table.
God willing, man. Let's hope they do. Just keep speaking the truth. Keep showing the facts, because that's something Democrats don't have. They don't have tangible facts. They don't have, charts and graphs and stuff that actually show real life statistics, actual information. All they have is just hopes, dreams, and feelings, for the most part. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, once again, the ongoing boom in real blue-collar wage growth continues to power an economic revival, and wages are up 1.4% at an annualized rate. Under POTUS, we have seen the fastest increases ever recorded to start a new term in the last 60 years. Look at that. Real blue-collar wage boom. So it goes all the way back to Nixon, 0.2%, Carter, 0.2%, Reagan, negative 2.1%, H.W. Bush, negative. Bill Clinton was flat at 0%. I mean, look, the 90s was pretty rad in the 90s. I mean, things weren't really all that bad in the 90s. I mean, Clinton had it pretty easy. George W. Bush up 0.4%, and then Obama down 1.5%, Trump up 1.5%, and then Biden down 1.7%, and then Trump up 1.4% again. So both of Trump's terms are way up in the plus, in the positives, and I think that's actually going to be it. And pretty sure, yeah, I'm going to plan on doing another show. I do these shows Monday through Friday, and I mean, I'll probably do it over this coming weekend. I don't really have a whole lot going on this weekend, so I probably will. Especially if I, get my mic performing better. I really hope it sounds good tonight. I'm really hoping that it did. And I'll just take a listen to it later this evening once I post the video. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that. And yeah, I've got a couple other supplies showing up. I'm going to add some new USBs to my PC because maybe it's a USB power issue. If it is, then I'm going to try to get to the bottom of that. If there's any crackling happening, apparently that could be causing it. So I'm throwing the kitchen sink at it, and I'm trying to do everything I can just to get a simple, decent mic experience going. So I don't know, man. Fingers crossed, hoping for the best. And I mean, trying to do what I can to avoid the worst at least. And that's about all I can do. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would really mean the world to me. And I'll drop a new show every evening covering the swamp and everyone living in it, the politicians, the bureaucrats, the agencies, and everything else. I also post daily episodes over on X, so you can feel free to leave a comment over there. I also I repost some of the content that I talk about in the evening, so if you want to get kind of a sneak preview as to some of the stuff I'll be talking about in the evening, you can check out my X profile and you'll see a few posts that I drop throughout the day that I will end up bringing up during the episode in the evening. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you had a great day today. Hope you have an even better rest of your night, and God bless America.